Maseches Bava Kamma Daf Yud Beis contains two primary sugyas. The first sugya, which is a majority of the daf, is about the concept of avadim, whether they have the halachic status of land or they do not have the halachic status of land. I'll introduce that machlokes and bring a number of proofs and try to show that it's perhaps a machlokes tanoim. And then the Gemara will refer back to the Mishnah and introduce the topic of me'ilah and things which belong to hektish. So let's begin. We've already introduced the topic of avadim having the halachic status of land. Now, land is different than all other things in the sense that you don't really own land. You can have a connection to land. You can have exclusive rights to the land, but the land is there before you. It's there after you. You can't really own it. Land also has a shibud on it because when it's bought and sold, everyone knows about it. Land also has a kinyan agav. If you buy land, other things which are on it or connected to it can get sold along with it. There are many halachos that land are different than other things because ownership of land is different than ownership of other objects. The Gemara has a possibility that avadim, or human beings, also have similar concepts. You can't really own a human being, and your connection to it is different than other things. And the question is the concept of owning avadim and doing kinyanim with avadim similar to that of land? Now, the question that starts the sugya, which we saw in the last daf, is referring to collecting from avadim from yisaimim. Now, generally, you can't collect a loan that is owed from the inheritors of the person who owed it to you. You can collect from the person who owes you the money, but if he dies and he leaves it to his kids don't have to pay it unless there's land and there's a lien on that land. The question is, what if they have avadim and there's a lien on those avadim? Does that consider to be a lien that the Yisayim will have to pay or not? So the sugya begins with a statement of Ula in the name of Rav Elazar, who says that you can collect from avadim. And the Gemara questions, what did he mean? Rav Nachman asked, what do you mean? Do you mean you can collect from the Yisayim and you're telling me that it has halacha of land? Or do you mean that you can collect from the person himself from avadim, in which case what's the chiddush? So the Gemara says that while Rav Nachman was there, Ula said, I mean that you can collect from the person himself. And the chiddush is, we're talking about where he made it into an apaitiki, that he said that this has a specific lien, these avadim, you're going to collect from these avadim from nowhere else, and then he sold those avadim. He could take them away from the person who bought them. Now, the Gemara says now that after Rav Nachman left, Ula turned to the people who were sitting there and he said, it's not really what I meant. I really mean that this halacha is referring to Yisaimim, and that it has the halacha of land, and you can collect avadim from Yisaimim, just like you can collect land from Yisaimim, because there's a shibud that outlasts and outlives those Yisaimim. There's a shibud on those avadim. Now, Rav Nachman found out about it, and he said, apparently Ula is afraid of me, because he knows that I hold that avadim have the halacha of movable objects, and there's no real shibud on them. Not like land. Avadim are not like land. So it's shaped up here as a machlekes where you have Ula quoting of Elazar, who says that avadim have the halacha of land, and Rav Nachman holding that avadim do not have the halacha of land. Now the Gemara quotes that there are other people who seem to side with Ula. There was an incident that happened in Naharda, and the Veisd in there paskin that you can collect from the Yisayim from the avadim, meaning that avadim have the din of land. Similar thing happened in Pampadisa, and Rav Chana bar Bizna was there, and he paskin also you can collect from avadim. So Ula, Rav Elazar, the Bezdin in Naharda, and Rav Chana bar Bizna all hold that avadim are like land, and Rav Nachman is the only one who disagrees. Now Rav Nachman went after them, and Rav Nachman was very powerful, and he said, I'm going to make you return that which you collected from the avadim. If not, I'm going to take it from you by force. So Rava said to Rav Nachman, everybody disagrees with you. Where are you coming from? So he said, I have a Mishnah. The Mishnah is brought by Avimi. It says that prosbul, which is where you are owed money and you give over the right to collect to the Bezdin so they can collect after Shemitah, that only takes effect on land. It has to apply to land because the land has to be considered to already be collected, it has to be in the possession of the Bezdin. So you have to own land for prosbul to be chal. And this mission says that you have to own land and avadim are not enough. Also, it talks about the halacha of kinyan agav. If you want to be kind of metaltal and movable objects together with a kinyan, you make on a larger, more significant kinyan. So this mission says you can be kind of metaltal in agav land, but you cannot be kind of metaltal in agav avadim. So you see two ways in which avadim do not have the halacha of land. So therefore, says Rav Nachman, this is my source, and that's why I'm confident in my halacha that avadim do not have the halacha of land. The Gemara wants to say maybe it's a machlekes tanoim. Here, Avimi brought this Mishnah that clearly says avadim are not like land. You can't use them as a principle and you can't use them for kinyan agav. We have a different Mishnah that says if somebody sold avadim and land, and he made a kinyan, he did a kinyan chazaka on the avadim, he's not kind of the land along with them. If he did a kinyan on the land, he's not kind of the avadim along with them. If he sold land and metaltalin, their kinyan agav works. If he did a kinyan on the karka, he's kind of metaltalin. It does a kinyan on metaltalin, of course. There's no kinyan agav in reverse, and that does not work. Now, if he sold avadim and metaltalin, and this is our questions. Here it says if he did a kinyan on the avadim, he did a chazak on the avadim, he's not kind of the metaltalin. There is no kinyan agav. If he did a kinyan on the metaltalin, he's not kind of the avadim. So there you have a source that says that avadim are not like land. And then we have a brisa that says that if he makes a kinyan on the avadim, he is kind of the metaltalim, which shows that there is a kinyan agav. So you have a contradiction between these two brises. Does kinyan agav work for avadim, being kind of metaltalim agav avadim? And that would seem to be a machlokes over, do avadim have the halacha of land or not? So you see machlokes tanaim if avadim have the halacha of land or not. So the Gemara says no. Find other ways of explaining this machlokes, and we have a few ways over here. First of all, we have Rav Ika Brei de Rav Ami, who says everyone really agrees that avadim are like land. So the brisa that says that kinyan agav works makes sense. The brisa says that kinyan agav does not work. The reason is because there's a special halacha. Kinyan agav only works on land which is immobile land. And that's because the pasuk that teaches me kinyan agav is referring to immobile land as opposed to avadim, which may have the halacha of land, but it's mobile. Now, the Gemara shows that. The Gemara quotes the source of the halacha of kinyan agav. It's a Gemara in Kiddushin, brought by Chizkiah, who makes a drasha from a pasuk in a different yamim, where it says, "V'yitin lehamaviyim matanis rabos lekesef l'zav l'migdonos." Their father gave them all types of movable objects. Im arim mitzuris b'Yehuda, with cities, fortified cities in Yehuda, and that was land. The cities are in land, and they acquired all these other objects along with them. But the only way kinyan agav could work is if it's like a city, like the Ari Mitzuris Bihta. It's got to be immovable. And therefore, avadim have done like karka, but not concerning this halacha. Now, a second version of Rav Ika's answer is the opposite. And then he said that both brises really agree that avadim are like metaltalin. They don't count like karka, and there's no kinyan agav. How does a kinyan on avadim work on metaltalin also? So Gemara says because the eved is holding that metaltalin, and it's really a kinyan chotzer. It's just like you put anything in the chatzar and then you transfer ownership of the chatzar, or you put anything into a chatzar, it's kaina. So you put anything into an eved, the eved's holding it, it's kaina as well. So I'm going to ask, but it's a movable chatzar, it's walking around, and the halacha is that a chatzar doesn't work unless it's in one place. So the Gemara says, well, maybe we're referring to where he's standing still. He's not walking around. The Gemara says, no, the fact that he has the ability to move around makes it a chatzar mahalachas. Rava says that anyone which could walk but does not happen to be walking still counts as walking. It doesn't count as immobile. So Gemara says we're talking about where he's tied up. The eved's tied up, he can't move, and therefore he's a chatzar she'ein mahalachas. He's holding it, and the way that he's kaina, if you're kaina the eved, the way that you're kaina the metaltalin along with it is not a kinyan agav like karka. If it is not like karka, it's just a kinyan chatzar because he has the things in his possession. The Gemara asks, the Bryce has mentioned that you can make a kinyan on the avadim and the karka together, and they might both be like the same malacha. So we actually had a contradiction between the brises. One said, if you make a chazaka on the karka, on the land, you're kind of the avadim. And one said, you're not kind of the avadim. What's the difference? How do you resolve the contradiction between the two? So Gemara says, one is referring to where the avadim are standing on the land, and that's where you are kind of the avadim when you make a kinyan on the karka. And one is talking about where the avadim are not standing on the land. So says, okay, one second. Let's analyze this in the light of the two versions of what Rav Ika Brei de Rav Ami said before. If you say that avadim count like metaltalin, so then I understand why they have to be on the land, because there is no kinyan of all the karka together. However, if the avadim count as karka, so the halacha is that if you sell multiple pieces of land, you could be kind of them wherever they are. They don't have to be together. The Gemara quotes Shmuel. You could sell 10 fields in 10 countries, do a kinyan on one of them, and you're kind of all of them, because it's all land. They're all together. They're all connected through the earth. So therefore, if the avodim count as land, shouldn't have to be on the land in order to be able to be kind of them along with the land. So then this doesn't make sense if avodim is like karka. Why should there be a difference between the prices? And you will say that one of them, the avodim, are on the land, one of them are not. Shouldn't make a difference. So hold on a second. But even if you want to say that the avodim are metaltalin, it still shouldn't make a difference whether it's on the land or it's not on the land. Because the halacha is when you do a kinyan agav, that you're kind of metaltalin together with the karka, the metaltalin don't have to be on the land. They could be anywhere. And the kinyan karka should be able to work. So therefore, we're back to we have a problem either way. Why should the avodim have to be on the land for the kinyan to work? So what do you have to say? That metaltalin that move around are different than metaltalin that don't move around. Fruits, for example, don't have to be on the land because fruits aren't going anywhere. Wherever they are, they are. So you can do a kinyan on land and make kind of the fruits that are somewhere else. But avodim, which walk around, even if they have a din of metaltalin, you can't do a kinyan agav because they aren't going to stay still in one spot. So then the same thing could apply to doing the kinyan of land, one piece of land, agav, other piece of land. If you kind of 10 fields and 10 medinas, that works because they're connected. But the avodim are not connected. And therefore, the avodim, you can't make a kinyan unless the avodim are on the actual karka and it's all together. Okay, that concludes this sugya. We now move on to our next sugya, that of me'ilah. So the Mishnah had said that you're chayiv for the nezek which you cause to property that don't have me'ilah, by which the Mishnah means to say it has to be property of a regular person, not property of hektish. But the Mishnah used a funny phrase when it said property that doesn't have me'ilah. That's not the same as saying property which is in hektish. There's a middle ground. There's property which is hektish, but still doesn't have me'ilah. So what would that be? So the halach of me'ilah, which is that there's an iser me'ilah, you have to make a carbon me'ilah if you use it for yourself, that generally applies to things which could go on the mizbeach. Kachim, or the emurim of kachim kalam. Kachim are certain types of high-level karbanas. Kachim kalam are things like shlamim. And shlamim, there's no me'ilah if you use shlamim for your own purposes until after shchita, till after the blood is applied to the mizbeach, zrikas hadam. And after all that, when the emurim, the parts that are burned on the mizbeach are ready to go, that's where there's me'ilah on those emurim if you use them for your own purposes. So this Mishnah seems to be saying that on kachim kalam, before Zrikas Hadam, there is still a Chiyuv Nezikin, because the only thing that's not is if it has Me'ilah. Someone says, who is this Brisa? This Brisa is, so Rav Yechanan says, this Brisa is referring to Kachim Kalam, and it's a Reisei Aglili, who holds that Kachim Kalam, meaning Shlamim, are actually the property of the owner, the person who's bringing that carbon. It's not property of Hektish, it's not called Mammon Hektish yet, and therefore it's still called Sharei Ehu. The pasuk says that this Nezikin applies to your friend's Sharei Ehu. So this counts as Sharei Ehu at that point before the Zrikas Hadam. The way to see that basically holds that, and quotes a brisa, referring to the concept of Shuas Bikodain, where you swear you did not ruin someone else's property that he was keeping stored by you. There it says Zumal Amal Bashem, that's to include Kachim Kalim, which are the property of the owner, according to Reisei Haglili. Now, the Gemara questions Rav Reisei Haglili's shita a little bit. The Gemara says Rav Reisei Haglili holds this way, but we have a Mishnah that says that you can't, a kohen who receives a portion of karbanis can't use it to be mekadesh and isha, which implies that it doesn't belong to him, it's not his money. Otherwise, he should be able to use it to be mekadesh and isha. So, for instance, does that mean that this brisa doesn't fit with Rav Reisei Haglili? And that Rabbi explicitly said whether it's kachim, whether it's kachim or kachim kalim, still you can't use it, even for kachim kalim. Somebody says, no, it could fit with Rabbi Haglili. Rabbi Haglili says it belongs to the owner until it's slaughtered, until shchita. After shchita, it doesn't belong to the owner anymore. And the reason is because the owner is responsible to take care of it until the shchita happens. And if it gets messed up, he has to replace it. Since it's the chrayas, it's his property. After shchita, now it already goes to Shemayim, and when the Kahanim receive it, it's from Shulchan Gavaya, as it were. It's being received from Kadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, and therefore it's no longer the property of anybody, and you can't use it for Kiddushin. The Gemara now asks a complex kasha, the point of which is to prove that Rav Reisei Haglili agrees that while it's alive, it is not the property of the owner. And this involves a Mishnah talking about a bechor that's born to a kohen. The halacha is that a bechor animal has to be given to the kohen. The kohen brings it as a carbon, it's carbon shlamim, it's kachim kalim, and then he eats it. Now, when a kohen has his own bechar, so he has to bring it as a carbon also, and there's no question about him having to give it to anybody. He could keep it; it's his own. And the halacha here is that it's his own money. Now, this Mishnah discusses to what extent is it its own money. So the Mishnah says if it's a balmum, so then you could sell it because it can't be brought as a carbon. And as a matter of fact, it talks about other ways in which you can bring it as a carbon, and then you could sell it. You could even sell it to Yisrael because it can't be brought as a carbon anymore, and you could be paid it, and Yisrael could use it. The kedusha goes off. So it says if it's a balmum, then you can sell it to Yisrael, no problem. Whether it's alive or even if it's dead already, it's already shachot, and then you find the mum. It doesn't matter. You redeem it. The kedusha is off, and Yisrael can keep it. Now it talks about if it's not a balmum. So it says, if it's not a balmum, you can only sell it while it's alive. And the reason is because then the Yisrael could wait until it gets a mum. After Shechita, though, there's no way to take that Kedusha off. And then it continues and says you could even use it to be Mekadosh and Isha. Just like you could sell it to Yisrael, you could use it to be Mekadosh and Isha. Now, this indicates that it's the money of the original owner, of the client who owns it. It's private money, and he can do what he wants with it, even though it is a living non-balmum, roy for carbon animal. But Rav Nachman and then Rabbi Baravua continues and says, no, this is only talking about where you can't bring it as a carbon. Even though it's not a balmum, there's still a different way that you can bring it as a carbon. What's that? Bisman hazeh, where there's no Beis HaMikdash anymore. It's not roy lakrava, then the Kahanim own it. However, if there would be a Beis HaMikdash, it would be roy lakrava, Kahanim would not own it. So he's making it that it is, as long as it's roy lakrava, it does not belong to the kahanim. They can't be mekadosh isha, and they can't sell it. And on that we had a kasha there. Rava asked Rav Nachman from this limud, which we said Amal Bashem the Rabbis Kachim Kalim, which seems to indicate that Rav Yosef Glili holds, Rav Yosef Glili is bringing it, that it is the property of the original owner. And Ravina there answered that that's talking about another way in which it's not roy lakrava, and that's it's in chutz la'aretz. And it's with the opinion of Rab Shimon, who says that you don't bring karbanis of b'chayrim from chutz la'aretz. If you did bring it, b'diavad, you could be makravit, but l'chadchila you shouldn't. You should wait till it receives a mum. So we're going through all these different options to try to show how it's not roy lakrava, but the indication is clear. If it be roy lakrava, we would say that Rabbi Yosef Glili holds that you can't sell it, you can't use it in Mekadosh Nisha, and it's not your money. So why are we saying over here that Rabbi Yosef Glili holds that you can? So on that, the Gemara answers very simply: there's a big difference between a shlomim and a bechar. Bechar is ma'anas kahuna. Ma'anas kahuna is given to the kehanim from shluchim gevaya, from shemayim, and therefore it is not his money as long as it's roy lakrava. Rabbi Yosef Glili was talking about a carbon shlomim, which is not given from shemayim, and therefore it belongs to the bailim until it gets to the point of after chayim.